Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. With me, your host, Ken. I'm a retired teacher documenting my hobby journey here on the pod, finding teachable moments to share with all of you along the way. Don't forget to hit me up on social media on Instagram at sportscard_lessons. Hit the follow button. And you can also watch these episodes on my YouTube channel, Sports Card Lessons. If you like what you hear, please like, definitely subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Welcome, everyone. How is everyone doing? Fantasy football this week, 3-0, baby. Back to my winning ways. Uh, that one cursed league was finally able to pull out the win. Um, Going into Monday, I was worried, but it all worked out. I actually ended up winning by like 15 or 18 points. So I'm getting excited. We're just past the halfway point of the season, but the fantasy, this is the stretch. This is the home stretch now for fantasy. This is where I've got to put together 4 or 5 wins together to really start to make a run. So hopefully I'll make the playoffs in all 3. I think I'm definitely I would be in on 2 of them, even if I went 500 on the other 2. But this last league, this cursed league, putting all my effort in there, see if we can make the playoffs. Going to jump into the episode today, and at the end, I'm going to answer listener question at the end. So we're going to jump straight in today. So today's episode: has the state of the hobby made smarter collectors? Has the state of the hobby made smarter collectors? And I guess I direct that statement more so at the newer collectors that have stayed in the hobby. People who jumped into or back into the hobby during the pandemic, such as myself. I direct that question. So when we came back in, the state of the hobby then was almost like a free for all for us, right? I mean, things were, and I've talked about this. You could buy a card and turn around and sell the card or trade the card for a profit in days, right? But now things have changed, and the people like myself who jumped into the hobby, has it made us now smarter collectors? Has it changed the way we're doing things in the hobby? Interestingly enough, when I talk to collectors who have been in the hobby for years, they never changed what they were doing because they expected the market to correct as it did and things to just kind of go back to the way they've done things for years. And as I direct that statement more so at the newer collectors that jumped into the hobby like I did, we brought all the new money. We brought all the people who jumped in the hobby during the pandemic brought all the new money into the hobby. So all these astronomical sales, everything that were, these weren't old school collectors all of a sudden spending $1 million on a card. Obviously I've never done that, but these were new people getting into the hobby, seeing these cards as an investment or just wanting to own the best cards and started putting all this money out into the hobby. So we brought, because I brought money into the hobby too. We brought money into the hobby, and now the hobby's changed a little bit. I know I become a much smarter collector. Personally, I become much more grounded and focused with my collection. I'm more selective on what I'm buying and really identifying the price that I want to pay for a card, and then that becomes my hunt. That's my chase. That's what I'm looking for. If I find a card I want, I identify the price that I want to pay for this card. It may be a comp, it may be over a comp, maybe under a comp, whatever it is. I'm identifying, then I start hunting for it, right? And seeing if I can get it at the price I want. And there may be a ton of people selling that same card and the price is just not what I'm looking for. I may try to negotiate, and if I can't get it, I'm not just breaking down and saying, "Oh, that's okay. I'm just going to pay that." No, I'm waiting now. So has that made me smarter to be, to sit back a little bit and start really being selective of the cards that I want to buy and the cards that I want to put in my case at shows and in this case behind me on the wall. I think most collectors that jumped into the hobby during the pandemic, are they active? Are they really active? And I say this, you know, are they actively here? Are those collectors that jumped into the hobby during the pandemic, are they actively here? And that key word active, are they still active? Are they participating in the hobby? And I quote my good friend Rob at Sports Card Therapist, participate participation is required, right? Are they still active in the hobby? Because I know there's a lot of people that I've talked to that kind of got involved in the hobby when I got involved in the hobby, that are still in. And then there's a number of people that I used to message with all the time, and now I'm not messaging with at all. And when I do reach out, hey man, how's it going? What's going on? Um, they say they're taking a little break, taking a little hiatus, waiting for the dust to settle, see where they fit back in the hobby. Um, And I think for a lot of people who are just on the collecting end, they realize they have all these cards they love, and the values have dropped on them. So they find it hard to be active. Um, they're not sure if they want to put more money out into the hobby now. They want to maybe wait and see where the prices of cards are going. The cards they have now, uh, and even for myself being active in the hobby, you would have a card, you'd see another card you might like, and you want to sell some of your own inventory to go buy into another card that you found that you might want. So if your cards aren't worth what you paid for them, it's difficult to sell those cards at a loss to try to work your way up to possibly another card that you like. Um, so they're taking a break. They're taking a hobby break. Very few people jumped in to the hobby with no collecting experience. They all collected cards at one time or another in their life, and we've heard the story. I take in a lot of content, and every story starts with somebody who's either been in the hobby or they were in the hobby at one point and then jumped back in during the pandemic. That seems to be just the norm almost for people who are in the hobby or have been in the hobby. But very few people jumped in with no collecting experience. Um, so they came with some type of cards, right? So even myself, all of a sudden you look at the card prices are going up, and what do we say? Oh, I got some cards in the closet, in the attic, in the basement, boxed up in somewhere, and you go start pulling them out, and it could be just that puts you right back into the hobby, buying and selling and trading, because all of a sudden these cards that you've been collecting, you realize there's some value to them. And then you start seeing what else is out there, and then you start, getting a little nostalgic for players or new players. A lot of us who jump back in were prospecting, um, a lot of prospecting and a lot of money in prospecting. And it's funny how many people I've met in the hobby that had some type of gambling in their life, right? Tons of people I've talked to. And I know for myself before the pandemic, I live in here in Connecticut. We got some great casinos in Connecticut. Once a month, I was going up to the casino, and once a year, I was making a trip out to Las Vegas. So I enjoy that, gambling aspect of it. And I think what happened was, pandemic wise, when people, were stuck at home, it became another, almost a form of gambling, if you will. And let's face it, I mean, prospecting is gambling. I mean, breaks are gambling, ripping wax is gambling. Um, so this hobby, attracts people from all walks of life. But when we come into the hobby, um, there's something that draws us in. There's something about the hobby that draws us in and keeps us in and lets us jump in, 2 feet, hit the ground running. And I know that happened with me and that happened with a lot of people. There's just something about this hobby, and I'm not sure if it's if it was the gambling aspect of it. Um, but I know if I was going to the casino and I was playing a particular game and I was losing every week, there comes a point I'm not going to go back and do it, right? And I think um, people want to be winners. You want to win. You want to go out. You want to win the deal. You want to be able to get all the cards at a great price. I mean, that's what we all want to do, and at a price where you could turn around and sell that card at any moment. It's a liquid card. No matter what I paid for it, I'm going to get my money right back out of it. That was something you used to hear all the time. What's liquid? It's a liquid card. So if I bought this card and if I needed money for anything, I could just sell this card and I had the money. If I wanted to upgrade to another card, a bigger card, if I needed the money, I could sell the card. There's going to be a buyer for that card. And that still holds true today, but I don't know if that same value is still there. So I think people who even felt like they had liquid cards, maybe taking a step back saying, I paid good money for this card. It may be a liquid card. People may want to buy this card, but is the price right? And I think it's the price aspect uh, that is making smarter collectors out there. It's allowing us to, and I say us, I'm including myself because I know I become a smarter collector. Um, just identify what you're looking for in a card, who you're looking for, what you want to collect. And most importantly, and you heard people say this all the time, well, I love this guy. So if the market went to zero tomorrow, I'd be happy to have this card. People say that, but do they really mean it? I say that. But do they really mean it? I think there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated that they paid good money on a card that the value is just not there on the card. And I think maybe that frustration is had people take a step back and reevaluate, what their lane is in the hobby. Um, the slowdowns at the shows, um, is that really true? I don't think so. I I mean, I know, and I wanna say this because I talked about this on a few episodes recently, about being at the shows and then being slow. But the more I talk to people and the more I'm really viewing what's going on, I talked about too many tables at shows, too many dealers shopping, and not enough, collectors buying. But a lot of it has to do with the price now. A lot of it has to do with the price now. Um, who is willing to put their cards, put the prices on their cards at what the current comps are? Because if I'm going to a show and I'm going to buy a card, I mean, I know what the value is, and I just talked about identifying a card, getting a price for that card, right? So, if I'm going to a show and I say I want to buy this card and I want to buy this card for $500. Now, the most recent comps on that card may have been between 475 and 650, right? And I'm saying to myself, I want to buy that card at $500. Now, if I show up at a show and everybody's got that card at 750 or $800, I'm not going to buy that card. So where's the slowdown? The slowdown is the money coming out of my pocket for that card, right? I think this is where the slowdown is happening. I think that and as a dealer and getting ready for a show in about a week and a half, I'm getting ready for a show. I need to evaluate my cards and the prices on my cards and the cards that I'm selling in my case versus the cards that I'm going to keep right in the rack here behind me, because there's cards that I've purchased that I'm not going to move the card at the current comp. So I'd rather just keep that card. Um, Am I hoping the value goes up someday? Of course, I'm hoping that down the road the value is going to go up, go back to where I bought it or higher on that card. But being in the hobby and being a collector, I'm not that upset about that. Um, because the money that I've put out for these cards isn't life-changing money. Money that I've seen be spent at some of these auctions for most people is life-changing money. These are the people that I would feel would have a gripe, would be more upset. People who spent, you know, upwards of, over six figures, up to $1 million, right, on a card. There's no card that I purchased is life changing. That if I couldn't sell the card or I had to take a slight loss on the card, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world to me. But being a dealer, it's replenishing my cases with cards that I can make money on, and moving some of my older inventory at whatever price I can get for it. And I'm going to talk a little bit more later on the listener question, because it comes back to one of these cards, about pricing. Um, I just think everybody is more informed now. You know, if you're in this hobby, you're taking in content and you're listening to people like me and you're listening to a lot of other people and you're getting a lot of opinions, but you just get an idea of what's going on out there, uh, at the shows or in the hobby or online. Even if you're not active on Facebook or Instagram and purchasing or looking up cards, if you're listening to content, you have a good idea of what's going on out there and how people are feeling. And interviews, people are coming in, and people are getting together and they're just talking about the hobby. Uh, and with the state of the market, I almost think that we're going to start to see more traffic at the shows, as much traffic maybe as we saw over the last year with these really crowded shows. And I think people are coming as collectors. They're going to be coming to look for the cards that possibly were priced out of their reach, cards that they wanted and just couldn't afford at the time. Now that the prices have come down and the deals are getting better, I think you're gonna see a lot more people, especially if you're a collector, a lot more people now showing up and saying, "Hey, if you've been at the shows, everybody's got the phone, they pull it out. Hey, look, the last comp was whatever, and you've got this card marked up $400 or $300 or $1,000 more than the last comp. Can we negotiate on this, or am I moving on?" Type of thing. And getting ready for my next show, this is what I'm expecting. People are going to come armed with their knowledge, with their phone, with their comp. They know what card they're looking for, and they kind of have an idea of the price they want to pay. I mean, whether I'm on this side of the table or that side of the table, I understand that, because if I'm walking a show, I'm going to be that customer. I'm going to be that person that has an idea of exactly what I want to pay and the card that I'm coming to look for um, at a show. As a collector, I need to find great deals to add to my PC and maybe even my case to sell. But the word I use there is a collector. I need to find great deals to add to my PC. But are today's discounts tomorrow's comps? And I'm going to say that again. Are today's discounts tomorrow's comps? And I talked about buying the Justin Herbert XRC PSA 10 that I tried to buy at East Coast National. And at that time, my budget was $2,000 on that card. And people had it at $2,300 and $2,500 and $3,000. And nobody would budge on that card. Nobody would budge an inch on that card. There was no way I could get that card for $2,000. Now we're talking about July and August. And if you've been listening a few episodes ago, I ended up buying one. I bought it online, $1,500, um, and that on eBay and through Facebook and Instagram, they were still selling, anywhere from $1,800 to $2,100. Still selling it there. I was super excited. Here's a card I tried to pay $2K for, I couldn't, and I ended up getting for $1,500. I was just super excited. Told everybody, "Oh, I got this great deal." Told the listeners, talked about it on the show, put it in the case behind me, right? Now, I see that card, the buy it nows on eBay are about 1,599, $1,600, 1,599, 1,589, right? So at that time, it was a great deal. I mean, I got, almost $500, $500 off that card. It was an awesome deal that I made. So 1 month after getting it, well under comps, my discount is now almost becoming the comp on the card. So are today's discounts, any discounts, like we're excited about these discounts we're getting, are they just going to be tomorrow's comps? Is this where we're settling in at? And where does it end? Where does the decline end and bottom out and start to come up? I don't know. And I ask a lot of people and they say the same thing. Your guess is as good as mine because nobody really knows. The people that I know that are confident in this hobby and happy in this hobby and are the people who've been in the hobby for many years, people who just didn't jump in to the hobby and they've seen this happen, before. Over the years, they've seen the ups and the downs of the hobby. So they know exactly what to expect. I think they were probably the most prepared for when this happened, um, when the market started to correct. If I'm buying a PC card, should I worry about what I'm paying? Should I worry about what the comps are? If it's at comps, under comps, over comps? It's going in my PC, right? It's not going anywhere else. Um, it's almost asking a question, should I grade that card? Well, if it's going in your PC, why do you care what it's graded at? Well, I kind of do. And to me, in my mind, it kind of protects it too, right? It's in a case, it's a little more protected. But should I worry about what I pay? Um, is it a rare card? Is it a card that I'm looking, that there's only so many of them out there that somebody can set the price at, or is it a more current card? And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Like, what are we willing to pay for a card that we're going to put in our PC? And everybody's answer is different depending on what the card is and what you're willing to pay for the card. Identifying a card that I'm looking for, right? Or I say I'm putting a chase on it, or I want to acquire. Am I going out there just to acquire it? Am I acquiring it for myself? Where's this card going? Um, as a collector, when I jumped into the hobby, I've probably overspent on well, at this point. At this point, I know I've overspent on some cards that are in my PC that I have in my PC that um, probably bought them at the height of the market and they've come down. But I'm not that upset at those cards. Those weren't cards that I was putting in my case to move. I wasn't trying to move these cards. These cards and some of these cards you don't even see on the wall behind me. Some of them I have in another case somewhere else. So when I go back and I look at those cards and I say, yep, you probably overspent on those cards, but that's okay. It's not upsetting to me because they were cards I was going to keep anyways. So whether I paid $1 or $100 for the card, if it was a card I was going to keep, it didn't matter. But the cards that are in my case now that I purchased that I purchased to put in my case to sell at shows, I have to display and price those as if I was just a collector or an attendee at the show. Because if I overprice all my cards in my case, then I really just become a buyer at a card show because I'm not going to be selling any cards. I don't have any rare cards in my case that people walk into a show and say, geez, you're the only guy I know that owns this card. And then you can make a price. I don't have any of those cards. So if I want to be successful at the shows and I want to have sales at the shows, I need to price my stuff right. And this is what I'm up against now. And this is where I'm talking about, has the state of the hobby made smarter collectors? I need to set my case up at the show as if I was a collector coming in to buy. And that's the only way I can be successful. So as I go out now and I look for cards that I'm going to add to my case, because at some point, um, I need to turn my inventory over. As a collector, I am only going to put cards in my case that I think other people really want, people that are really looking for. Where in the past, that I'm like, oh, okay, this is a really cool card. I kind of like this card. So I was buying cards that I were putting in my case that I liked. Right. But what I like and what most people like, and a lot of those cards that I really thought were cool ended up becoming stale cards. So in some way, the state of the hobby has made me a smarter dealer too, right? Having to readjust, change my lane up a little. What am I doing? Am I going to go to more single cards and less slabs? Am I going to buy singles and have them graded and put it out there? So these are the things that I need to work on. So over this busy season now, between now and the end of the year, it's things I'm just going to take note of. I'm going to be walking around I'm going to be selling at these shows, but I'm going to be walking around observing what other people do. How are people successful? Um, I talked to my guy, John, at behind underscore the underscore diamond. And he tells me his shows in Long Island have great traffic. He just had a show this past weekend. He called me up. We were talking about it. And he said, look, we had good traffic. And if your prices were right, people were buying. I talked to some people who went to the Chantilly show, and they said there the traffic was good and the prices were high. Dealers were admitting, they were saying, hey, look, I'm high on these cards. And they walked around, they didn't buy. On Saturday, Sunday, they went back late in the day, a few hours before the show ended. They made a list of the dealers or the tables that had cards that they were really interested, and they went back and they ended up making deals on the cards. And at that point, the dealers were looking to make some sales. If this is a business, you got to make some money. I mean, you just can't go to a show and just not sell anything. So these guys, they were smart. They spent the day Saturday looking for what they wanted, just what I'm talking about. Smarter collector, made notes, went back Sunday later in the day and said, let's make a deal. And they started getting some good deals on cards. Eventually, those cards are going to be, those cards are going to be gone. Eventually, the dealer, at some point, any of these cards that people are high on and they're overpriced in their case, eventually they're going to sell. Eventually, there's going to be a turnover in most people's cases that the prices are going to come back to what the current comps are, say. And I think that's going to weed out a lot of dealers, because I think for a good amount of the time, and I've talked about it on my podcast, setting up at these shows and just selling so much stuff, just not even be able to sit down all day, just people coming and buying and buying. I don't think people are going to be buying like that anymore. I don't think that there's as much as that new money in the hobby as there was. And I think it's going to be a little bit more work, and I think the margins are going to be a little bit lower, and I think it's just going to weed out the dealers. And I think who does that benefit? That benefit the collector. It benefits the smart collector, um, and it probably benefits the dealers too, because if you have less dealers, it's a little less competition at the show. Less dealers is less tables. Next week, I'm getting ready. I talked about this, getting ready for a show on the 19th in New Jersey. Um, and I've just started pulling out my cards and, taking a good hard look at them, just seeing what's going to go, what's staying, what's going in the PC, and then what's going to go out in the cases. I mean, what are we going to sell? What are we going to adjust prices? And I know there's going to be some cards I'm gonna take a loss on. There'll be some cards that I'm probably going to break even on, and I'm hoping that there's going to be cards I'm going to make a little profit on. Just kind of look for a general balance in there, because at some point I'll have to turn my cases. My cases will have to get turned over to new inventory, or not completely turned over. But I'm definitely looking into, and I talked about this, getting my soup box going. I've been working on singles boxes. It's funny. Somebody had said to me, Ken, when you go to a show, dollar cards, $3 cards, $5 cards, even $10 cards are always $1, $3, $5, or $10. But these higher end cards that are, you know, 700, 800, 1,000, they could come down to 200, 300, 400. So if you have a $10 card that drops to $8, what's the big deal, right? You could still move that card. But if you got a $1,000 card that drops to, 300 or $400, it's a lot harder to move that card. So I'm definitely getting involved more in the singles box, and building some singles boxes, and just working that angle for these upcoming shows to see how well it works for me. But I'm just looking forward, man, to getting out and setting up at a show. It feels like it's been forever. So I'm excited. I'm a week and a half away, really getting excited for the next show. On Monday, I'm going to be dropping an interview episode with a couple fellow Wolfpack members, Dave at DJ Sports Card 86 and Craig at New York City Sports Cards. We're going to be talking about how the World Cup will affect the soccer card prices and getting ready for World Cup. And if you know, I've been talking about, and I'm looking forward to this because I've been picking up soccer cards all year, because everybody's been saying when the World Cup comes, those prices are going to go up. So I have, a good maybe 18, 20 soccer cards that I picked up, over the last however many shows. And yeah, I'm hoping these are things I can put in my case, and the prices are right on them. Shout out to Ziggy No, Sports Card Show on YouTube, who left some comments on last week's pod. And he leaves regular comments. I appreciate you listening. I really do, man. And I just wanted to, just kind of go over your comments and question, over the comment and a question. I'm just going to go over both of them and just talk about it here for a minute. So he wrote, what is the goal with the Brady card? And going back, we've talked on a few episodes of that Brady BGS 9 that I had the opportunity to sell at 2,700, and I didn't, and I held it, and now the values are down on it. So he said, is it an investment? His suggestion was I would sell it if it's an investment. If it's a PC or more, then don't worry about it. But he would suggest selling it now and buying it back in a year or two. There's no reason for the card value to go up. Why? Do you think it will go up in the next 6 months? How about 12 months? If you use logic, there's no reason it would go up, but lots of reasons why it would go down. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. And I'm hoping this is the last time I talk about this Brady BGS9, because I made the statement last week and I stand by it. He's a proven GOAT. No matter what happens with him this season, we all know he should never come back. And I really, truly, hopefully, hoping that he retires, that this is it for him this year. And I think the retirement will kick those prices back up again. I really do. I think when he retires, it would kick it up. But if it doesn't, it's still a card that's 22 years old. It's a 2000 Bowman Chrome. And they didn't make, I know the pop count is high on those cards, but it's not as high as a lot of these more recent cards that are coming out. And I'm happy just to hold that card. I really am. And you're probably right. I probably could have sold it then at 2,700 and maybe bought it back today at $2,400. Or sold it and bought a better one, right? Maybe maybe a 9.5 or a PSA 10. I certainly could have done that too. And there's no reason that I may not yet do that. But right now, it's a card that I'm not upset that I didn't sell. I'm still happy I own the card. And I think, as to your question, what would the only reason it would go up? I just think it's retirement. I think once he retires, I think some of those values may go up. They may not. They may never go up. And I may own that card for the rest of my life. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. Another question he asked, really good question. Do you look back at 2022 and realize now that there was really no good investments in the cards? And I really thought about that. And I was going to respond online. And I thought this may be just something good I can talk about here on the pod. And I say it depends on how you look at it. Because a lot of the higher end cards, in my case, that Brady that we've been talking about, the Mahomes Silver, and I've got a number of XRC PSA 10s, they all came from leveling up. All those cards came from taking the stars from this year, these Prism Silvers and the autograph. They all came leveling up, trading those cards up to these bigger cards that I have in my case, and some that are in my PC. So a good investment? Well, as far as what I did for leveling up, yes, it worked for me. But as far as prospecting, I do still have a number of those cards. It's yet to be seen if it was a good investment or not, and it could take years before we know. My biggest fear with those cards is at some point it's going to be considered junk wax from being overproduced. That's why, and I've talked about this, that when I'm talking about investing in cards in the hobby, I'm not prospecting. I'm investing. I'm going to invest my money into proven players that can't get benched and can't tear an ACL, and people who've already proven themselves. So when we talk about an investment, I think those are the safe investments. If I want to do some prospecting, I can do some prospecting, but that's not an investment. That's like saying I'm going to the casino and I'm going to play blackjack because it's an investment, because it's a gamble, because I could lose it all and walk away with nothing, right? So that's the same thing with these cards. So investing in GOATs and prospecting in anyone else, really. And again, we won't know. It'll be a few years. There was plenty of rookies in the 2021 rookie class, and we won't know for a while if any of them are really going to pay off or not. Upcoming shows, talked about it. November 19th, Secaucus, New Jersey, La Quinta Inn and Suites, Laz show. Looking forward to it. Then Thanksgiving weekend, November 26th, 27th, Westchester show in Tarrytown, New York. The Laz show, again, Garden State show, Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, December 10th. And then the Big Apple Trading Card Show in the New Yorker Hotel in New York City, Sunday, December 18th. Looking forward to all those shows. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. Please subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend, spread the word. And until next time, be good to yourselves and everyone around you.